We're going to go to the Houston Texans to talk about the team that won the division last year at 10-7. Got it done against the Colts in Week 18. The win total, 9.5. Key losses, Jonathan Grenard, Sheldon Rankins, Malik Collins, Blake Cashman, Devin Singletary. A lot of players in that defensive front. But they did add Daniil Hunter, Azeez Al-Shair, Danico Autry. Offensively, Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon. They're like, okay, we have our guy. We have a franchise quarterback, legit stud on a rookie deal. Let's go get legit veteran talent around him. I love the moves the Texans made in the offseason. 10 wins last year, Reagan. Do they surpass it this year?
They don't surpass it, but they don't go below it. They win 10 games again.
No way, dude. I have 10 games. I have 10 wins too.
Dude, no way.
No way, bro. We still like.
Yeah, but the only difference is I have the Colts as one of the worst teams, and you have them as one of the best teams. I have this team winning the division. They'll get the 4th seed in the AFC. I mean, they've just gotten better. It just really speaks to how good the AFC is. But to me, they're going to be a playoff team for sure. I think CJ Stroud struggles a little bit more this year. I think he'll have more passing yards and more touchdowns, but I think he'll have more turnovers. I don't think he'll have another season with only 5 turnovers. Or 5 interceptions. That was pretty impressive for a rookie.
Very impressive.
But I think the fact that he's going to have a Stephon Diggs in his ear, kind of, hey, why didn't you throw that to me? He might force it a little bit more, have to deal with some of the struggles Josh Allen did, but it's all worth it for a talent like Diggs. And I'm really excited for Joe Mixon, man. I mean, he's a guy that I think will have easily over 1,000 all-purpose yards, but I think he'll be a double-digit touchdown guy for sure. He's definitely a guy that, I don't know if Drock said it. I'm probably already picking Drock's pick for him to lead the league in rushing touchdowns because I know he's a big Joe Mixon glazer. But
that is a fact, but it's not.
But I'm excited, and obviously you got a guy like Laramie Tunsil, a guy that's been a Pro Bowler before, was a Pro Bowler last year, kind of the staple of it. And hey, it doesn't hurt that Will Anderson is, just the defensive rookie of the year from last year. And then you give him Daniil Hunter, a guy who had did you highlight how many sacks he had? I believe he had 17.
I did not
sacks?
highlight how many sacks he had, but I can tell you how many he had. He had 16 and a half.
I was trying to find it in my notes, but 16 and a half. I mean, I knew he was up there, but I mean, obviously it sucks to lose Jonathan Grenard. He's the younger guy, but I mean, hey, at least you're getting a 16 and a half sack guy to replace him. It's not the worst thing. So I think this team's going to be competing. I definitely think they're a team that could be in the Super Bowl, if not win the Super Bowl, as long as you have CJ Stroud. I think you have a chance if you have one of those elite quarterbacks, and they certainly do.
Yeah. Before we touch on the Texans here, Reagan, I just checked real quick. The video on Twitter has 16,000 views.
That's crazy.
Bro, it's crazy, bro. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, that's sick. And I mean, the fact that you did, and I love that freaking little Chucky rat laugh you had, because it's going to be even crazier when you hear how much it has on TikTok.
Oh, my God.
Take a guess how much you think we have on TikTok.
Is it more?
Yeah, that's why I can't wait to hear your little Chucky rat laugh again.
25K?
No, 34.6.
Oh my God, bro. 34K of just Jaden Daniels lobbing it up with triple coverage and Zach Ertz coming down with it.
Yeah,
let's go.
Speaking of that, now I got to deal with the Zach Ertz bullshit in Washington. I was harping about how he was killing Trey McBride's stock last year, and sure enough, as soon as the motherfucker gets cut or traded or whatever the fuck happened to him, then all of a sudden Trey McBride's a beast for fantasy. And trust me, I'm huge on Ben Sinnott. Like I'm like his biggest believer. I've been saying that since he was drafted. I've been trying to get him in every dynasty league, every best ball league. I have like 100% exposure of Ben Sinnott, but I know for a fact freaking Zach Ertz is going to be taking that shit for at least the first half of the year, and it sucks because it's going to really fuck his development, where I think he could have a Sam Laporta type rookie breakout, but it's not going to happen because of Zach's freaking Ertz. So instead, we're going to have to deal with that. But we're talking about the Texans, so I'm not going to go on too big of a Zach Ertz rant.
Sorry. I just had to touch on it just because it's blown up the last hour that we've been recording.
All
right. I got the Texans at 10-7. Same record as last year, although I think they're a better team on paper for sure. They have the 7th most difficult schedule this year, which is the biggest increase year over year for any team in the league. They only played 4 playoff teams last year, which is the lowest amount in the league. So, yeah, CJ Stroud was a dog, absolutely, stud. But it's going to be a little bit more difficult this year. They also played without 4 of their 5 starters in the offensive line for a big part of last season, which made it more impressive what CJ Stroud did. obviously Laramie Tunsil's an absolute stud at left tackle. He's a top 5 in almost every category. Just some nice little CJ Stroud stats. His touchdown interception ratio was best in the league. Over 4,000 yards, 64% completion rate, 23 touchdowns, 5 picks. Very good. He's the youngest quarterback to ever win a playoff game. Most passing yards by a rookie in history in one game, that 470-yard performance. And started his career with, if you don't remember, Reagan, 191 passes before he threw his first pick. A lot of crazy all-time stats from Stroud. Nico Collins, nearly 1,300 yards and 80 catches and 8 touchdowns. Dalton Schultz, 59 catches, 635 yards, 5 touchdowns. You had Stephon Diggs, which, he kind of faded out of the offense in Buffalo the back half of last year, but Diggs is still a very good route runner. He's still a stud at receiver. You got Tank Dell back. I love what they have on offense. And Joe Mixon, like you mentioned, not another one of those guys, not a phenomenal NFL back in terms of yards per carry and breaking tackles and none of those stats, but just the pure volume that he gets in Cincinnati, which he will get again in Houston, I think is just huge for fantasy. I think if you have him at RB2, you're feeling pretty good. If you have him at flex, I think it's a great flex piece. If he's your RB3, I mean, your RB room's awesome. Defensively, they did play a very easy schedule last year, particularly quarterbacks and offenses. The easiest schedule of quarterbacks and offenses. So this year, the flip is script. They play a top 10 most difficult schedule. I'm curious to see how this defense looks. I love Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson on the edge. Awesome edge rushing duo. Derek Stingley starting to hit his stride. Another thing where it's like, okay, Trayvon Walker is too. He's no Sauce Gardner, but forced an incompletion on 20% of targets last season. 6th best amongst all corners, according to Pro Football Focus. That's good. That's really good. But, he's got to stay healthy. He's always had the injury problems. Got to stay healthy. Azeez Al-Shir touched on him. The Titans lost him. Their leading tackler. Now he's in Houston. Big ad. Other linebacker, Henry To'oTo'o out of Alabama. Kind of struggled a lot. Jalen Petrie, they took out of Baylor 2 years ago at safety. He struggled a lot. So there are some question marks on defense for me, but there are definitely a lot of really good pieces. I like Kamari Lassitier, the corner they got out of Georgia. He was a stunning coverage. Didn't test very well, but really good player at Georgia. They added a couple other guys. Kalen Bullock, 3rd round as a safety. He was good in coverage too, so he could crack the lineup potentially. Ultimately for me, it's like, okay, it's year 2. Now teams have film on Stroud. Much more difficult schedule. I still think they win 10 games because they are a better team on paper, but I think they're getting so much hype right now. Like a lot of people think they're going to be in the AFC Championship game and could potentially push for the Super Bowl. I'm not buying it. I think they're a wild card team, and could they win another playoff game? Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not buying the hype that they're going to go to the Super Bowl, any of that. 10-7. That's what I got for the Texans, and they lose the tiebreaker to the Colts.
But they do make the playoffs.
I think they make the playoffs, yes.
Gotcha. As what one of the wild cards?
Yeah, wild card.
Well, yeah,
obviously if I said
yeah, but I mean, like,
but not win the division.
Like, is what one of the wild card 1, 2, 3, or yours?
I don't know. That's for a pod down the road, Reagan, before the season starts when we do our playoff predictions and stuff. I gotta see how the rest of the AFC maps out when I start digging into it more. But I do think they will be one of the wild card teams.
Fair enough.
Drock, do you want to get in here? Your Texans pick here. Did you find your line for the Jaguars? Or are you still?
Yeah, we're gonna void Drock's other 2 picks. They never even offered Trevor Lawrence's rushing yards for the entire season last year, so I'm assuming they're not offering it this year. So we're gonna go and switch it up with ETN's over rushing yards for the year at 900 flat.
Why? Because on your fantasy team?
Because you want him so badly off my roster. Yeah, that's exactly why I'm.
Yeah, I sent him a deal. It was actually a pretty good deal. Like, Najee in a 1st round pick. I was willing to go more, and he counters with Bijan Robinson and 2 firsts for ETN. I'm like, all right, dude, you're just like, you're not even fun to do fantasy with because you just don't trade because you're scared everyone's gonna smack your ass around, and then you just counter with bullshit offers.
Yeah, PTSD from you just taking advantage of me. So we're not gonna. My first year in fantasy, and you're just like, oh, it's such a good trade. It's such a good trade. I'm like, dude, just take it, whatever.
Yeah, I remember we were at Chipotle too. It was awesome.
Yeah, I completely remember this.
I saw Reagan fucking tore his head off.
Did you guys lady in the Trampa burrito?
No, he wanted to, but I said no.
Oh.
No.
He ain't a prude. He's a prude.
I am prude. All right. Long shot, but good value. The Texans to score 1+ passing touchdown in every game this season at plus 1,000.
Stroud to throw a touchdown every game.
It's a long shot because it has to be passing touchdown, but I like the odds. I'm gonna sprinkle it. Not gonna go slamming it as hard, just a little touchy slam it. So that's what he's gonna do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I'd be curious to look at his game log last year if he threw a touchdown every game. I don't know. Reagan, what are your thoughts on that? Oh, all right. Reagan's gone, guys. His computer shut off. So we're going to take a quick break and be back to finish up the pod. Yeah, you didn't have it plugged in. Yeah, so we're back. Reagan's computer's back on. Just randomly shut off. Probably should plug it in before you do a podcast.
No,
Reagan,
it didn't die. I think it just crashed, bro. I have so many tabs open. I'm always just like watching videos and just a creature of habit trying to learn more about the NFL game.
Oh, wow. You know, I love that, dude. You're always on your grind, always trying to get better at your craft. So I respect that. All right, Reagan, your MVP for the Houston Texans, CJ Stroud. Come on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, obviously it's CJ Stroud. I mean, he's the MVP. This team goes as far as he does. He's not the X factor in this case because I expect him to play at an MVP level. I don't really think he has a floor like Trevor Lawrence did, like we were talking about before. So he's the MVP for me. I'm assuming that's the same for you. So my X factor, this one's a little more interesting. But I'm going to go with Will Anderson and the fact that he will become that elite edge rusher. Like, obviously, last year he was Defensive Rookie of the Year with 10, but he's the X factor if he can push up to 15 to 17 sacks, really get into that higher echelon of double-digit sacks.
I like that pick, Reagan. I like that a lot. I'm going a different route. I'm going Stephon Diggs. If you go on a couple week stretch as Diggs and you're not getting the targets, you're not the primary guy like you were in Buffalo up until halfway through last season. Stroud's finding Nico Collins. He's finding Tank Dell. Is that going to be a problem for Diggs? He's had a lot. We heard a lot of issues in Buffalo. Diggs was upset he wasn't getting the ball. This and that. A lot of beef with Josh Allen. I like the chemistry that this team had last year. They are almost like we have nothing to lose. A lot of young bucks. Now you have this veteran Diggs that steps in. His personality, locker room fit. What if he's not the number one guy? That's the X factor for me because it could derail this offense.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's also a great pick as well.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
This is one, like, I won't even debate you on that. Like, I won't even have a debate. I'll hear you out. I mean, like I said, I kind of thought Will Anderson Jr., but, you know, I will accept your X factor pick on that one.
Cool, man. Yeah, that's really what I was looking for was your approval. Rookie of the Year.
Well, this one's kind of tough because obviously they didn't even have a first-round pick this year.
Yep.
So it's really, pulling teeth here. How many of these guys will really have how many of these guys do we even expect to be in positions to start this year?
Yeah, I mean, like Blake Fisher, their right tackle they took in round 2. He's not going to start over Titus Howard right now. It almost seems like a pick for the future. Kalen Bullock could get some time early at safety. Cade Stover, tight end from LSU, like obviously has some chemistry with Stroud built in.
Looks
He's
like
very good blocker, though. I don't know. I mean, it was a pretty strong class, but the only guy that I see starting right away is Kamari Lazatier out of Georgia. So that's who I went with.
Yeah, that's who I would go with as well, just because he is the only guy that's going to play. And also, I neither of us really got into it before, but another big impact for this team is the special teams additions. They re-signed Fairbairn, a guy who we've seen be a Pro Bowler before, and I believe he was named All-Pro one season. If not All-Pro, he's definitely been a Pro Bowler. So getting him back, he's been one of the most consistent kickers, so that's huge for them. And obviously going out and getting Tommy Townsend from the Chiefs, he's been one of the most punters in the league as well, another guy that's been at an All-Pro before. So I think those are two huge moves that honestly aren't highlighted enough, but that is a big reason why this team could be a Super Bowl contender because they're going to be elite in the special teams game as well.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, we love our special team. Shout out Charlie. Shout out George. Depoy, you have Will Anderson?
I do. Yes, I do.
I have Danielle Hunter. I have the other edge rusher. 16.5 sacks last year. I think it's going to take a lot of pressure off of Will. So Will can take that next step and start becoming one of those elite pass rushers, but I still think Hunter's that guy. I think he has more sacks than Will Anderson this year.
I like this defense a lot, too. I'm not going to lie. It's very good, and I find it very funny that they went out and got Alshire and that they went out and got Autry. So two of their probably big impact guys in the defense are from the Titans. So got to love that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a Titans fan, not happy about that. All right, Reagan, that wraps up all 4 teams. Let's do our little fantasy draft, huh?